I'm afraid my bags are going to
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Nick.
I'm Jill, and we're HipStrings.
Welcome to day 8.
Yes,
8.
that's what it says on the...
I literally just typed this like 30 minutes ago. And, okay, welcome to day 8 of the Base12 Spinalong for 2023. I realized one of the things that we should have mentioned on day 7, since the halfway mark, we should have redone our whole like day 1 spiel about what Base12 is
yes.
and all that stuff. You were about to color
for last night.
I
forgot to.
I didn't color for last night either, so I'm going to do that too, and we can talk a little bit about what is this crazy thing that we're doing. So Base12 Spinalong, it is Base12 because it is 12 days. That is a secular spinning event. And Base12 is also a mathematical method of counting. So instead of counting in 10 digits, like base 10.
0, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
You count in 12 digits. And since we don't have any other weird looking numbers, we start using letters. So it's
0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A, B.
So then
10.
Yeah, so what is 10 in base 12, what is 10 in base 12 is 12 in base 10.
Yeah.
So A is 11 and B is 12. Sorry.
No,
sorry.
A is 10.
A is 10, B is 11, 12 is 10. See,
4 years and you still don't have this straight.
So we also have these wonderful bags that have come along with this, and we are now a little bit past that halfway mark of coloring them in. You have been using just all sorts of random colors.
Yeah.
Because
I repeated one.
I am doing what we are having our customers do, where we only included 3 markers. But these are fabric markers that got included with the bag, so they actually, once you heat set them,
I tried to color coordinate the markers I put together in bags. But
yeah, I just did random stuff. So if you've got colors that don't seem like they match at all, that's completely my fault, and you're welcome. Paula says hello. Cornwall Crafter says good morning, Jill and Nick. And Jill, did you ever say how your weekend away was?
My weekend away was amazing. I highly recommend it. A friend and I got a cabin in the middle of nowhere and brought a whole bunch of good food and good booze, and we sat around and chatted and crafted and ate and drank, and we're very merry.
Why don't you pause on the story?
Yeah.
And then we can talk about that after you talk about the fiber and we start spinning.
Okay. So day 8.
I'm going to roll for mine.
Day 8. Try to get this not blown out by the lights. This is Patagonia. It's a hand-carded bat. Patagonia is an area in the southern part of Chile, also Argentina. It's kind of a wild wilderness area. It is 70% merino wool, 10% mulberry silk, 10% tussa silk, 5% viscose from lotus fiber, and 5% tencel. So I'll talk a little bit about lotus fiber and tencel because those are both unique cellulose-derived fibers.
And mine is looking into the future, so don't look at what I'm doing. Sorry, since I interrupted you already about the what you were actually starting to talk about. Do you want to talk about lotus fiber, or do you want to talk
I'll
about?
I'll talk about lotus fiber. So lotus fiber, and I have a sticky finger. My finger, like fiber, keeps on sticking to it. Lotus fiber, as well as like tencel, other fibers we come across in spinning, like bamboo, viscose, rose, mint. Those are cellulose-derived fibers. So that means the starting material is cellulose from different plant sources. And then it goes through what is known as the rayon process. The rayon process was developed as trying to find a silk alternative because a virus infected silkworms and threatened silk culture production worldwide, especially in Europe. And so they were trying to find cheaper alternatives to silk. And so through the magic of chemistry, they developed what we now know as rayon. The original process is extremely dangerous and has a heavy environmental impact as well as a heavy impact to workers. However, there have been modern advances, and especially with fibers like Tencel. Tencel is a specific process that is generally with, I'm trying to think what type, I think it's eucalyptus. It is a specific closed loop system that meets very high environmental standards, and it's not polluting. So there are like rayon.
Yeah.
So sourcing really matters for your regenerated cellulose. Basically, you take cellulose, you put it in with a high acid, it dissolves into goo, then you add other chemicals, and that goo forms filaments that are then spun out into fiber. So anything of those silky things. They're not protein fibers, so they get dyed using fiber reactive dyes, not acid dyes.
So there's Tencel. We've seen all sorts of other things
Bamboo,
like
mint, rose, pearl.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of things that are called things, but they're all essentially at their core rayon or viscose. But like there's a different process for creating Tencel versus other viscoses.
Okay.
Nice. Tencel is a trademark. And so the lotus fiber, so there is a lotus fiber that is a very expensive, very labor intensive fiber. It's a bast fiber, but the lotus fiber that's in this is a type of viscose. Just the source material is lotus stems.
Excellent. So how was your weekend away? Or
My
did you say
weekend-
everything you wanted to say?
It was awesome. I highly recommend it. Go grab a couple crafty friends and then find some place where nobody can bother you for a couple days.
Amy says, happy Tuesday. Is it Tuesday, really?
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
I've got no concept of how the week is going. I spent my evening installing a mesh network, so I'm quite happy to be here. Good. Apparently it's working. And Cornelcopter asks, are they actually made from those fibers, rose, mint, etc.? I can't seem to find a definitive answer online.
Yes, they are made from those fibers. Pearl is not made from pearls. It is infused with nano pearl dust, which probably means some crushed up oyster shells are used in the process somewhere.
But when they say it's made from, let's say, mint, right? It's not like they're taking mint and then spinning it. They are basically, as Jill had mentioned,
huge truckloads of mint in for the rose is the leftover rose stems from the floral industry.
And they're mashing it and turning it into a goo.
Yeah.
And then going through this process.
So the good thing is that most of these cellulose fibers that are used for viscoses are waste. They would
normally go to a landfill.
It would normally go to landfill. So like mint is an invasive plant. The rose is definitely a waste product from the florist industry. Oyster shells is another huge waste product from fishing.
I'm trying to think of another good example because it's so heavily processed. It's like saying honey is made from flowers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
it is very heavily processed.
So it's like you're not going to get the sense of mint. Your mint fiber is not going to smell minty.
No.
It's not going to be green. But the source material isn't being
Though
mint.
they do have different feels. I have spun and used different viscoses and blends. And some of them are more silk-like than others. I think actually my favorite is rose. The rose viscose is very, very similar to mulberry silk. And of course, they are a much more affordable alternative.
I wish we
and
had
vegan.
access. Yeah, that's true. I wish we had access to to an SEM so we could actually look at how they look under the microscope?
Yeah, I'm sure it has something to do with staple length and surface texture and stuff like that.
I mean, if it retains some level of the cellulose structure, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm not. I haven't gotten that detailed in the chemistry.
Yeah. Well, sounds like we've got some homework to do.
Yeah.
You gave me a handicap today
What's that?
because my group of fiber is in multiple pieces,
No. Well, mine's a multiple piece. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
lengthwise, not widthwise.
Yeah, that was me being lazy and not wanting to make an extra bat for just me and you.
It's okay. It's my fault for not spinning it at the same time as you. I'm going to hope that you also have that same handicap.
It does mean that you have about, I think you have 0.6 ounces of fiber, but mine is very generous too today. So.
Ashley is saying happy Tuesday as well, and she's late. You'll have to report after class.
Gonna need a tardy slip, missus.
There you go. So I had another interesting topic, good topic for us to talk about. So I was talking with Kayla today.
Yeah.
And she was asking about why do we spin at an angle instead of straight ahead, right? You know, instead of having everything in line with the orifice, why do we have everything at a little bit of an angle?
Okay.
I
have an
gave her
answer
an
for this.
explanation, but go ahead.
What was your explanation? I want to hear
Well,
yours.
it's to prevent the twist from
Yes.
traveling from your single into the supply.
Yeah, so
That
Nick
twist
does this like around the post spinning. And the thing is that twist doesn't like to travel around corners.
Yeah.
And so you can slow down how your twist is traveling in your fiber if you make it like go at a right angle or an angle. I spin at an angle because if I spin like this, I kill my wrists. And the nice thing about Magic Crafts is you can actually move the head of this, and so your flyer doesn't have to be straight in line with the treadles. It doesn't have to be in the center like most castle wheels. You can move it over to the left, you can move it on the right. I'm actually an ambidextrous spinner, so I can spin with left hand forward or right hand forward. Though my grist changes.
How do you
between
normally
hands, so I
like
have
to spin?
Depends what I'm spinning.
Oh yeah.
I usually spin worsted, like short forward. I usually spin left hand forward. Point of contact spinning and long draw, I spin right hand
Interesting.
forward. And I think that's because I really learned to spin on support spindle. And for support spindle, fiber's in the left hand for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I
So
spin this
long
way
draw,
with mine.
I'm much more familiar with doing long draw with the fiber in the left hand.
So, Colonel Crofter, I'll get back to your comment, absolutely. But let's see, Amber, we've completely blown her mind. Twist doesn't like travel on corners. I like the, again, that stupid heart is blocking part of the text. But something about, like this is life-changing in my spinning. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, when I was talking to Kayla about it, the reason why I wanted to bring it up here is that she would spin in line and have trouble with the twist going into the fiber supply. And of course, you know, when the twist goes into your fiber supply, you're kind of done for. It's really hard to pull and it makes anything kind of a mess. But if instead you know, I have kind of an extreme version of it here where I am rotating around the corner, and you definitely have
There's a lot more twist building up here than what travels.
like I could just hold it like this, or I can even do it like this. Right, and it's going to keep pulling and keep adding twist until I let go, and then it's just going to come off to the rest. And now I'm way over twisted in my single. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, my hands do all sorts of little adjustments depending on what the fiber is, and
No,
There are some things my hands don't do. My hands don't actually spin the way that most people I see spin. I think what a lot of people are taught is to just pinch with like thumb and forefinger and pull that forward and then slide your finger down.
Yeah, which I've
like
never
this.
gotten that. I can't seem to actually spin that way.
Which, if you do it that way, that smoothing action takes all the air out of your single, which is great if you want a lot of drape and luster, but it also makes a very dense yarn. And that's why a lot of people, their hand spun is very dense, and unlike mill spun, most mill spun is spun more of a point of contact way. So point of contact is you let twist get right up to your fiber supply and then it gets pulled. And so it traps more air. And so I don't smooth down my yarn even if I'm spinning worsted. Twist isn't getting into my fiber supply, which is what makes it worsted, but I don't smooth down. And my natural hand spun has a very similar grist to mill spun, and has been that way. And I also do that. So I use this to pinch, and that's controlling twist. But then instead of pulling so much with that, my ring finger actually has a lot to do, and it helps me draft. And it puts tension on the single.
Oh my gosh, that's like so much easier, but I end up spinning a hell of a lot thicker. Let me see if I can control that.
Well, it's learning it.
Yeah. So it's
fine tuning.
I don't think I've ever discussed this with you. One of the reasons why I kind of get a little bit tired when I'm spinning is that as I'm drafting, I always untwist a little bit, pull, untwist a little bit, and pull.
Because you've got a little bit of twist.
So I have a little bit of twist going into the supply, but not a lot. So I will untwist a little bit, but like
you have a rolling action with your fingers.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of you have noticed, every now and then I'll like do this to stretch out my thumb because it gets sore when you're doing this every day for,
half an hour
a day. But
yeah, I don't spin on castle wheels anymore because when I spin straight in a line, the way that my wrists was causing wrist pain and thumb pain. And I am a person who cannot, my hands are my livelihood. So we're going to treat them as gently as possible. So I've switched entirely to either spinning on Saxonies or Magic Crafts where I can adjust the flyer position as needed.
So hopefully that gives a little bit of an insight into different ways of holding your hands, different ways of spinning. And
there's not one way to do it that works. There's lots of different ways. Are you able to control the twist as it moves in your fiber? And that's all it comes down to.
What I might even comment here is that, like, even though it looks like I kind of have everything in line right now, the way that I'm holding it, I'm kind of adjusting the way the twist travels by using my finger here. So there's a lot of little adjustments going on.
And I know a lot of people think Magic Crafts all have what's called a delta orifice, and a delta orifice is basically a triangle, and it usually likes it if you're spinning in line with the delta orifice. We're actually both spinning with flyers that have tubes, so you don't have to spin in line. You can spin off to an angle.
Well, even with the delta orifice, you can spin a little bit off at an angle.
You can.
And I'm spinning.
I don't spin with a delta orifice if I can help it.
You get a lot of wobble.
Yeah, you get a lot of wobble and it bothers me. So I spin on mostly tubes.
And Carnival Crafter detests the delta. Stephanie, by the way, says, I spin on a castle style, but I deliberately keep my hands back to the side because wrists are assholes. Yes.
Yes.
Jean says, the aqua colors are amazing tonight. Love them. And this was a bat you're spinning?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you were spinning.
And I'm spinning a bat too, but I'm not telling you what day. I mean, there's not that many options left of what day it is, but. Okay, going back to Cornwall Crafter's question, saying, if it's definitely a closed loop process, then it would be great talking about
Oh, yeah.
the viscose production and the tensile
Tensile
specifically.
is a closed loop.
It's all good being vegan if the fiber you use isn't eco-friendly as the main. Let me make sure I read this right. It's all good being vegan if the fiber you use isn't eco-friendly as isn't the main part of veganism to be environmentally friendly. And also, she's trying to be very clear that she's not trying to start a row. And absolutely,
I mean, there's lots of reasons why people choose to be vegan.
There's a lot of reasons for. Oh shoot!
There's lots of reasons for the fiber choices we make, and they're all valid.
But yeah, the addition of trying to make things a little bit more environmentally friendly, especially from the standpoint of the non-natural production, is really important. There's a lot of stuff, even stuff that I'm working with on my daily job of trying to ensure that we push forward for better environmental production, environmental sustainability.
And textiles are one of the most polluting industries in the world, and always have been.
Oh gosh, I have a weird thing with my. There we go. Okay, that goes to the side. So yeah, I think this is why rayon itself, is I think, I mean, technically rayon is probably vegan as well, but it is not as. Oh, that's why I'm going.
You have no brake band.
Spinning fast because now I have no brake band. Everything is just going terrible.
Haha! I have a chance.
You had a chance way before.
I think it's important to be informed about your fiber choices, and properly informed about your fiber choices, but not be judgy about your fiber choices or other people's fiber choices.
Well, there's the other aspect. God damn it! The other aspect of it is. What was the other aspect of it? I'm not remembering.
Do you want to not talk while you fix your brake band?
Yeah, I should probably not talk while I fix the brake band. It was on there, and then for some reason it's super loose now. What did I do? I did everything wrong. Okay. All right, let's try that now. Now my tensions were too tight. You're supposed to talk. You entertain them.
Oh, I'm not good at that.
All right.
I'm trying to spin. I'm enjoying my fiber.
You've totally won now.
I have.
Like I've completely lost any hope.
Oh gosh.
It just came off again. All right. The textile industry, a whole other discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is.
I agree.
Whole. What? Barrel of monkeys, bucket of crabs.
Bucket of crabs. I like the bucket of crabs.
In terms of fiber choices, everyone has to make a choice for them in terms of values and budget. Being as informed as possible lets us make the decisions intelligent. Exactly.
Yep. And the best choice for you is not necessarily the best choice for other people. When it comes to skill, capability, access, any of these things. So we strive to make all of this as inclusive as possible, and we encourage all of you to do so as well. Because some of us can't even make a join live streaming.
That's a big ask.
Okay. All right, I did it. Huzzah. So Amy's asking, what are we wearing?
So I'm not 100% sure. Okay. I think the pattern is Rocky Shores. A friend actually made it, and it's with Buoy DK. She made it and then realized that her skin's a bit too delicate for Buoy. And so we happen to be the same size. So I was like, I will take your Buoy sweaters that you will not wear, and I will exchange them for more fiber or yarn. So I got a bunch of sweaters and she got more fluff. So everybody wins.
And what am I wearing? Because you knit this too.
That is, I think that's the Trim TRYM vest. And that is a Knit Picks City Tweed DK, which is an alpaca merino silk
no wonder it's so
tweed
soft.
blend.
It's a nice drape. I like it. Not everything we wear is HipStrings. To our own silent shame.
Yes. Just most of what we wear is HipStrings.
I mean, when the stash is so readily available.
When it's so easy to get your hands on a sweater quantity.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is nice to be the shoemaker's family.
So we've now gotten to a nasty habit of putting something new to discuss up on the wall behind us. By the way, Corner Crafter also says it's a shop sample when you make it out of your own stuff. Exactly.
That would be nice if I actually made stuff that I actually currently had in the shop and I wasn't just like using up the stuff after I decided to discontinue it.
Yeah, that is true. But at least you're showing off the
right,
dyeing
this is
style.
This is a previous run of Buoy Decay. There are 2 runs of Buoy Decay. The first one is a slightly different grist than the second. Second I like is nicer. That's what's currently on the shop. It has a bit more loft. It has a slightly less plying twist. So
yeah, we've been creating a habit of putting interesting new things on the wall behind us. And
it's like the spot the difference puzzles, right?
Yeah. So today is not something of ours, but it's something that we did for a hobby. We on a monthly basis in Pittsburgh, there is a Lego store about 3 shops away from a whiskey store in a mall. And we, of course, decided those 2 things go very well together. And so we go with a group of friends about once a month and build Lego at the whiskey shop. So this is what we built tonight, and figured that might be the best thing, because we were running to get here on time and didn't have a better idea of what to put up there.
I mean, yeah, we used to start at 9 p.m. so late to make sure that all the kids were asleep. Now the kids put themselves to sleep, but it means we still have a chance to do other evening activities before.
Yeah. And tomorrow we'll be going to my my work party, but I think that ends at 7, so we'll be back with plenty of time. And Ashley is very jealous of the Lego and whiskey that we do. So if you ever find yourself in Pittsburgh, let us know. We'll schedule.
We'll put together a Lego and whiskey for you.
And Cornwall, let's see. Jean is asking, is the aqua fiber in the shop?
So all of the bats will be in the shop when the shop reopens in January. So the shop will be closed for a couple days at the beginning of the year so that I can do inventory. I'm hoping to be reopened by January 3rd, but sometime that first week of January. The shop will reopen and all the hand-carded bats from Base12 will be available for pre-order. And they will be available made to order depending on availability of supplies throughout all of 2024. And you can find previous Base12 years. Some of those bats are also still available as made to order options.
Oh, really?
I had an order last week for Rumor, which is from like 2020.
Really? I had no clue.
So.
And what determines whether or not something is available?
Whether or not I have the supplies to make it. So some of them are made with fibers I don't have, or I can't get a hold of anymore, or ones I don't carry in the shop anymore. So if I have the supplies, and I will have to do a studio tour sometime. I'm planning on doing one before I do inventory. To give you guys an idea of what it is, because it's not a dinky little like corner in my basement.
Anymore.
It's my own little wonderful fiber wonderland. But there are walls of supplies for like making bats, of shelves full of dyed merino and different dyed silks, and all that stuff.
We'll have to figure out how to get a nice wide angle on there, because there are some hallways that are a little bit skinny because they're so full of fluff. But it'll be good. Maybe we can do that this Friday or something.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little tour.
Yeah. By the way, as if it wasn't enough, Hollis is noting, I missed you last night. Was at a party, watched the replay, and would like a zip threader, please.
Well, I forgot to bring the supplies home.
Again?
But we're busy for like the next couple of days with the real life. So I will try to have the zip threaders up in the shop at the beginning of January as well.
Yeah.
I think that is a reasonable thing. I'm still dealing with an onslaught of running a retail business in December.
Well, this would be interesting to hear all of your hypotheses because even though we are past the point where you cannot get things shipped in time for Christmas, people are still making orders. But you were saying that the orders...
The nature of the orders has changed in the last week.
They're shifting a little bit. How are they shifting?
Yeah, so a lot of the orders between Thanksgiving and like last week before the shipping deadline for the holiday would be like 1 or 2 items. Lots of gifts, definitely stuff that's marked as gifts. But this week, I'm now seeing a whole bunch of big orders of people buying like, a good 6, like a good over a pound of yarn or fiber.
Yeah.
So if they're gifts, they're really generous gifts. I have a hypothesis that people are starting to plan out their 2024 crafting.
It's 2024 already. Jeez,
yes, they're 2024 crafting. And so they're starting, they've done all their Christmas shopping and now they're buying something for themselves and they're making their plans for 2024. So that's my idea. So I'd like to know, are you still shopping for fluff at this time? Are you making plans for 2024?
Ashley and Stephanie have a good hypothesis. It
What?
might be related to bonuses hitting around this time of year.
See, you've never gotten a bonus that hit in December.
All of my bonuses are always
in March.
In February, March time frame. So, and Cornwall is saying, just like you're saying, a gift from me to me.
Which is why I'm not closing the shop. I'm closing the Etsy shop from December 27th to January 3rd. Shopify, so www.hipstrings.com. It's going to remain open because if I don't want to work every day and send stuff out, it's okay with Shopify. Etsy has like this ticking clock. If I don't get orders out within a certain number of days, they ding me. So I don't want that pressure over the holidays. But if you're willing to be a little bit okay with me being lax on my shipping schedule, www.hipstrings.com will be open through the holidays. And it'll just close for a couple days for inventory from probably the 31st to the 3rd. So that you can shop for yourself after the holidays.
You still do gift cards?
I still do gift cards, and I take Etsy gift cards too.
Nice. So I guess that's something that people can still get.
Yep.
For a quick turnaround.
Yeah, because it's just a digital gift card.
Yeah. Cornwall Crafter was saying, couldn't believe how fast it got back to me regarding the SOTW.
The Sweets Off the Wheel Spinalong.
Yeah.
So I dyed up a full batch of every colorway on 3 bases for it to start off the Spinalong, because that's how this rolls.
That's how you dye them. That's how you
That's how I dye.
Yeah.
Things get dyed in over a pound of fiber at a time. Because if you dye it different quantities, it will change how things look. So I started off with a head start on the Sweets Off the Wheel Spinalong stuff. So
if you want it fast, order now. But if you're...
Well, most of those first batches are gone.
Never mind.
And I'm starting to...
plan out the second
do dyeing.
batches.
I dyed today for...
Nice.
To fulfill orders.
Keeping the garage warm.
Yes.
Okay, so I have another thing to chat about. Oh, you're trying to find where the rest of my fiber is? It's right here.
You were supposed to lose.
Well, I realize I am spinning a little bit thicker right now, but that's not the reason why. Anyway, it sounds like you were sabotaging me in telling me that I'm supposed to lose.
No. You took up time and you had difficulties.
Yes.
I'm just going to say I had a very generous bat.
Yep.
It was very fluffy.
Yeah, it was. It is. Still, because it's still there.
And yours is not.
Just saying. Yeah, the thing I was going to say, I realized that we didn't, when I was doing the podcasting with Gab, we were referring to Jill as mother rather than mom.
Oh, yes.
And I just want to put out there that is totally a Gab thing. And that
is a bottom-up decision, not a top-down decision.
Our children have weirdly decided that they will not recognize us unless we are referred to very formally of mother and father. I will call Jill mom sometimes. They're like,
I'll call him dad.
What?
And they'll be just like,
That's just
excuse me? Who are you talking about? And I say, father.
And sometimes they will call us life giver.
Yeah.
They'll call Jill life giver.
Yes.
When they really want to suck up, but it is.
Oh, there's an even longer title if they really want to suck up.
Do you remember what it is?
Adrian was using it the other night. It's like life giver and, provider of my existence.
Yeah, something crazy like that. So, yeah, I don't want to put out there that we are some weird, overly formal people. It's our children are weird, overly formal people. I don't know where they get that from.
Bottom-up decision.
Yeah. So, Cornwall Crafter, by the way, notes, the longer it takes, the longer we get the pleasure of your company. So Donna was asking, what is the Sweets Off the Wheel spin-along? I know you've been showing the fiber. More details, please.
So I took all the fiber to the studio. We've shown it off before.
Yeah, you can look
but the Sweets Off the Wheel is my home on Ravelry, and it's a really active spinning group on Ravelry. And I mean, I have a really amazing group of friends through that, and I've learned so much from them for more than the last 10 years. And so they're bringing back doing a spin-along with a featured dyer, and Lucky Me got picked as the dyer. And so the inspiration for the spin-along is the light, and it's the depiction of light in artwork. And so people submitted different artworks. And people chose ones for me to choose from. And I chose two pieces. One is Moonlight, and one is Festival of the Toadstool Dance. And if you look on HipStrings.com and you look up the light spin-along, you'll see those pieces. And then those two colorways are available on 3 different fiber bases, which are 100% Cormo wool, a 80-10-10 Targi bamboo viscose, and Tessa silk, and then Bowie, which is my own exclusive blend that is a mix of Blueface Leicester wool, Shetland wool, and Manx Locken wool. And so pre-orders for that spin-along are open through January 7th. Fiber will ship by February 1st. And the spin-along starts in March.
And of course, it won't focus at all. But you can see on hipstrings.com, if you actually, I was just checking, if you search Google for HipStrings Sweets Off the Wheel, it's the first thing.
But you don't have to be a member of the group to buy the fiber.
Yeah.
I should have plenty of fiber and plenty of time to meet everybody's needs.
And Cornwall Crafter, in referring to the previous one.
I said Leicester. She's Leicester.
By the way, also notes that their children say "Mother Dearest" if they want something. I actually said "Mother Dearest" to my own mother once when I was younger. She got very upset. Apparently, like if you go back far enough, it's a reference to some like absolutely horrible mother that there's some horror story about it. I don't know. Anyways, it really upset my mom when I did. I never did it again. So, how long is the spin-along?
I think it goes for 3 months. We're a very chill, relaxed group.
Yeah, not like
we're
us,
not
where
intense.
you have to do it every day, right? No. Jam is asking, can you talk about NEPs? What causes that, and what causes that to take, or do they take dye differently? What causes NEPs, and do they take dye differently?
Oh, so there's lots of different ways to get NEPs. NEPs are basically what forms when you have a very short piece of fiber. And so it kind of like, instead of it getting integrated into the web of fibers, it kind of just isolates itself and forms a little ball. You can do that on purpose to make like a tweedy yarn. Traditionally, tweed is a recycled wool product. And so any sort of recycled textile is going to have those
really
short little bits.
And so
NEPs,
it's gonna stick out. It's gonna do this.
Yes.
It's gonna give it some extra texture, and it's always intentional, right?
Yeah. Usually, you can form NEPs if you're like processing a fleece and it has really shortcuts in it because they like went over a spot more than once, and you've got a little shortcut that's teeny tiny. When you try to card that on your drum carder, it will create a NEP. Or if you have tender fiber, or if your drum carder is being rough with the fiber, it can.
So does it take dye differently?
Well, it depends what the NEP is made from. So wool fibers, protein fibers, wool and silk are dyed using what we call weak acid dyes. So it's a type of synthetic dye that sets at a pH of about 4.5, as well as heat, about 190 degrees Fahrenheit. And then, but fibers that are cellulose based, so either are still in their cellulose form or derived from cellulose, like the rayons and viscoses we were talking about earlier in Tencel, those fibers aren't dyed by acid dyes. They are dyed by fiber reactive dyes and like direct dyes. Fiber reactive dyes operate at an alkaline pH of about almost 10. You can get it a little bit lower, but 10 is optimal. And they don't necessarily need to be heat set. And so if you have viscose NEPs, so I sell like what I call my South American tweed blend, which is South American wool with a viscose NEP. Those NEPs take dye. They won't be dyed by the acid dye process that I use to dye the wool. So they retain different color.
Which is cool.
Yes,
right?
it gives you a nice visual contrast. So if you have NEPs that are like viscose NEPs mixed in with wool, they often are a separate color, and that will be retained through the dyeing process because they don't absorb the dye.
One thing I will say is that if you are used to just spinning things that are smooth and trying to be really consistent, NEPs can be very jarring. I was gonna say jarring, right? Like
But it all comes out in the plying.
It does, but you have to consciously be okay with having those NEPs in there. You have to make that conscious decision, not try to like maybe I can sort of stretch that NEP out, and that's what like I know I naturally want to do. For me, it's a little bit of a challenge to let it go, and then allow it to come together in the plying. But it comes out with a great effect. By the way, let's see, going back a little bit here. So Cornwall Crafter clarifies that they're the child calling their mother Mummy Dearest. So if your mother hasn't caught on to it being a problem, then go for it. I always thought it was a nice thing because I hadn't watched horror movies when I was a kid. I know that. There's a great conversation happening between Stephanie and Ashley about all the things that are in that horror movie where Mummy Dearest comes from.
Oh, yeah.
So, I believe they're both horror fans. So But yeah, I generally don't like horror
We're
movies.
not big horror. Sometimes we can do campy
Kind of.
horror.
Campy horror, I like. I like horror comedy, zombie comedy, like the one where what is it? The one where
Which
the
one?
zombie falls in love and cures.
Warm Hearts or
yeah. Is it Warm Hearts? Cold Hearts? One of those.
I thought it was Warm
some temperature of
Yeah.
hearts. That,
Mid.
mid hearts, temperate hearts.
Yeah.
The zombie falls in love and that ends up curing his zombification. That's a great one.
One of our favorite Christmas movies is Anna and the Apocalypse, which is a
Christmas zombie musical.
yes.
If you don't like blood, don't watch it. But if you're okay with blood in a kind of ridiculous fashion, it's hilarious.
It's absurd.
Colonel Crafter has just gone down the rabbit hole. I apologize. Jem says, the Polworth I'm working with is full of it, so I'm trying not to spin the perfect yarn and learning to accept the texture.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It is... I'm going to ask a question that I'm afraid that asking the question is going to seem, I would say offensive, but maybe dismissive. Could you accept the idea that spinning yarn with neps is sort of a light introduction to art yarn?
No.
Wait, listen,
Nope.
listen
Nope.
to my reason for it.
Nope.
I accept your answer. The reason I'm asking the question is because it is something where you have to consciously not spin the way you naturally spin in order to create a certain effect.
Yes, but
I know, it's very uncomfortable to ask that question.
yes, but it's writing that whole beginner yarn is art yarn.
But it's not a beginner yarn. It is a specific conscious decision to do a particular effect.
You can have textured yarn that is not art yarn.
Absolutely. That is true too.
We need to stop classifying everything that isn't perfectly smooth, consistent handspun that looks like mill spun as art yarn.
Oh, I agree. And if you end up watching Saturday, I tried to make sure I was clear on that, and Stephanie helped me with that. Lenore, by the way, also says very much nope.
I know Lenore is very anti-nep.
But okay. So could you qualify, since I've stumbled and stuck my foot in my mouth a lot about art yarn in general, could you talk a little bit about how one does get introduced to art yarn?
Like techniques?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the definition of what art yarn is.
Yeah. You can tell I
art
hit
yarn.
a spot here.
Yes, this hits a spot. This is something I have very strong feelings about.
Yeah.
Art yarn is an yarn spun with intention, so that the final product evokes a particular visual or emotional response. Like you are trying to be evocative of a certain concept or a certain kind of imagery, or you're looking for a very specific visual effect that is outside of traditional hand spinning.
Still not finding a difference with having neps in the yarn there from that definition. Sorry.
If you were like, okay, I want to visualize the idea of a stream flowing through a stream bed. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay. With pebbles. And if I
having a nice even single with little bits of pebbles going through it.
And yes, so if
neps.
Then you could incorporate the neps and be like, those are evocative, like they are representative of the pebbles next to the stream, and then I'm gonna have a visual like a blue silk.
Yeah.
That's art yarn.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're just making a tweedy yarn, that's not art yarn.
Okay. I realized I've pushed as far as I can push.
Yes.
So Kayla is also asking what I'm drinking. It is not Icy Light in this case. I'm getting constantly trolled with like, what is the shittiest?
Is tomorrow
beer?
like give me Natty Light?
Yeah, right. Now this is the Naked
Some
Elf
PBR?
from Trogs, which is a spicy Belgian. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
It's Mad Elf without the cherries.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
That's why it tasted so familiar.
It's without the secondary fermentation.
I
with
do
the
like it.
cherries and the honey.
I do like it.
Oh, but okay, going back to, yes, you're dealing with neps in your Polworth that you're spinning. So I am currently spinning a black Corriedale fleece that has some of those tiny little shortcuts. And I started out trying to card it, and I was getting those little neps. So I've switched over to combing. So if a way to remove those neps from your yarn in your fiber processing would be to use combs or like a hackle, or just flick your locks open. And while you're doing that process of flicking your locks, you'll find those little shortcuts and remove them.
And what do you mean by flicking the locks open? So what do you use for that?
Use a flicker.
Okay, which is kind of like
it's like a tiny
comb.
little hand card.
Or a hand card, okay.
Yeah,
not
it's
a comb.
usually
card.
just
Okay.
a tiny, like maybe a 3x3 inch square of carding cloth, and then you just like hold on the flicks, or lash the locks onto the flicker by catching one side of it and kind of combing through it, brushing through it, and then flipping it over to the other side. And that way you'll kind of and those little shortcuts will get lost in the teeth of the flicker and not into the rest of your fiber. Or you can just embrace those little neps and make yourself a lovely Tweety yarn. And especially if you want something that's more consistent, just go for more plies.
So Cornwall Crafter said they got a lock pop for Christmas, so I'm assuming that's a type of flicker.
It's kind of. It's a product made by Clemis and Clemis, but instead of bent teeth, it's straight up and down teeth.
Okay.
It does a better job of grabbing locks, but the purpose is to flick open locks.
Okay. And I'm going to start having to hire Stephanie as a way to reframe all the stuff that I'm trying to say so I don't shove my foot so far in my mouth. She's saying, so having neps or slubs in in the fiber you are letting through your fingers, that's different than deciding to design a finished yarn and adding it in terms, adding in items and techniques to get that effect. If you had some plain comb top and decided to add some bits of random shit to it to design a different style of yarn, that'd be art yarn.
Yes.
And then Donna, by the way, says, I never liked the terminology of art yarn, but with your definition, I like the term. Evoking an emotion or a statement is what makes art.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And honestly, the people I know who are really amazing at art yarn, they have a tremendous amount of control, and the techniques that they use to be able to do what they do is difficult. It is master level spinning on some cases.
Now, I feel like, trying to choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to elevate something to the point where people can't access it. And so, but I also don't want to denigrate the incredible skill of the people that are doing
I feel like it's when people,
art.
like some preschooler like tosses paint on a canvas and people are like, oh, it's a Jackson Pollock. Like
Which it's not.
Which it's not. If you've actually gotten to see a Jackson Pollock in person, you get to recognize there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And that's not something that is analogous to, you know.
But at the same standpoint, it allows people to understand the beauty of the process of learning how to create that. So,
Yeah.
This is a tough one in terms of how do we.
Well, you can separate skill
Yeah.
from intent.
I'm trying to process that statement.
Think about it.
Well, but I think so. One of the things that I like about encouraging beginner spinners. So, because of all of this, by the way, when I see a beginner spinner create something that's slubby and in and out and everything, I don't call it art yarn, but I do say it is beautiful, right? And I do say that it is. They're utilizing new techniques and learning a whole bunch of stuff that is applicable to.
It is not bad.
Right. It's not bad. It is applicable to all different types of yarn, and they're learning new techniques, and anything that they're creating, actually, if they learn how to create that on purpose, will improve their skills. I can see people calling it art yarn as a way to try and encourage somebody, but I also agree with the aspect that you don't want to denigrate the masterful skill of people who create art yarn by equilibrating it, right? So
Right.
this is where I have the struggle. I should go back to some of the chats here. So Stephanie also adds, also the technique with which you spin is important to the concept of art yarn as the fiber/materials used. Sorry, I keep running out of space. Jam says, yep, tried all those things. The flicker works the best, but working with short locks, so it's challenging.
Yeah, short locks are always challenging to work with.
And I mean, when you're doing all this stuff, I mean, it's hand processing. You're doing it. If you're doing it for production, that's rough, right? Like there are machines for doing all this stuff.
Sometimes you
on
have to
purpose.
embrace the nature of your source material.
Yeah.
And be like, getting a smooth, consistent yarn is not what this fiber is good for.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm going to go in a different direction, even though that's not what I originally wanted. The fiber is telling me something else.
Yeah. But also, there's the aspect of if you want to put the time into it, right, and recognize it's going to take the time to flick out all those neps and and enjoy the process, because it's a hobby at this point, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then let's see. Colonel Crafter says, "Have you heard of Casey Jenkins?"
I have not heard
She
of Casey
put me
Jenkins.
right off art yarn. Interesting.
I'll have to look her up.
We'll have to look her up and then comment on it tomorrow. But you're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Excellent. So I have
Your final entertainment?
I have my final entertainment. Now that I've like completely shoved, like I'm like knee deep with my foot in my mouth. No, hopefully I've not. My intent was to introduce discourse, but I think we're on the same page.
Yes, I think we're on the same page. It is just something I have very strong feelings about.
As you should, because they are art yarn that's actual art yarn is very skillful.
Yes, and I have friends who are gifted artists with yarn, and they have had their work diminished by people.
Yeah.
They really feel hurt by people calling inconsistent yarn art yarn.
Yeah. Jem, by the way, says that they've accepted their wool as crap, but making the most of it, not in a race here. Donna also says, it's the same problem with visual artists. Many beginners start doing abstract art without taking the time to learn the skills and the techniques that are needed to create the piece you intend. Yeah, and I think, I actually, the more and more I think about it, I really like your definition of the intentional feeling to evoke. You know, I've had a very complicated relationship with art from my youth, because I have a brother who is an artist. I have a sister-in-law who's an artist of forms. My father was an architect, so there's a lot of art that I was exposed to. And there's one thing that my brother was doing some art in high school, and he said a very emo high school thing. Now that I realize, I asked him, you know, what's this thing supposed to be? You know, I liked it. I thought it was interesting, but it confused me. So I was like, what is this piece of art supposed to be? And he said, I don't know. What does it mean to you? The very sort of like, it seemed very deep to me at the time. And I'm sure as a middle schooler hearing from a high schooler, I think I was actually in elementary school at the time.
Yeah.
Elementary schooler hearing from a high schooler, this like, oh, wow. Now I'm realizing there's a little bit of a, one, that might have been him trying to get feedback from me, but two, is a little bit of a cop-out. So evoking and, creating an intentional evoked feeling is an interesting aspect to art as well. I don't know.
It is something I try to do with my like signature blends and my bats. I am trying to evoke a certain
an emotional
visual imagery
crisis here of understanding art in general. So you guys are watching.
I'm
the process.
sorry.
No, you shouldn't apologize. You've created art in my brain, Jill. Okay, so I think we're caught up with all the comments. I think my foot is like hip deep in my mouth now. So I will talk about another form of art. I knew somebody who would write songs.
Yeah.
But they would only write songs about sewing machines.
Sewing machines.
Sewing machines, yeah. They were a singer-songwriter, or so it seems. I figured
Good night.
This is one
I'm
that
done.
This audience could actually get. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully with a slightly less controversial discussion. Or maybe not. Maybe you like it. Have a good night.
Good night.